Hello and good morning. I'm Devesh Chand Srivastav, your host for today's episode of The Thought Line. India is no more the back office for the world. It is now the innovation hub for the entire world. With over 1,700 global capability centers and the number rising fast, the India GCC story is evolving from cost arbitrage to innovation and genuine technology leadership.
You're listening to The Thought Line, a Forvis Mazars podcast, where we explore the ideas and insights shaping industries and economies across the globe.
To discuss this and dive deep into this aspect, I have a guest from Forvis Mazars ecosystem, Sunil Kalra, who heads the India practice of governance, risk consulting, and forensics. Sunil, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Devesh. Thanks for inviting me for the chat.
We keep talking about the numbers on GCCs, like we just discussed, but we would really like to understand from you, what stage of evolution are GCCs currently in India?
Yeah, it's a very valid and a good question, Devesh. When GCC started in India, we can call it GCC 1.0, 1990s. It was more to do with call centers, voice-related processes. The idea was India was seen as a favorite cost, efficient destination. And then we matured in the GCC journey. And in that journey, you can call it GCC 2.0, where anything which was rule-based, a process that can be defined, anything which has large transaction with large volume, that was the focus area. So one can have a process and one can run the process from India with population, with this having accounting degrees, and that was the case. But now the scenario has changed. GCC in current scenario is no more restricted to just few processes. It has actually expanded to AI-driven strategies, product engineering, R&D. So if you can relate it, then it is not just a cost area. It's a, I would say, intellectual thinking area where GCCs are moving. So if you just look at the current scenario, whether it is cybersecurity, it is product engineering, research and development facilities, all is happening in India. So it's a thinking era for GCCs, I can say. GCCs of India are no more just executing the work for countries, but rather it is actually thinking the thought of the world. So that's how I look at GCCs in a current scenario.
So Sunil, while discussing on the subject before we planned this episode also, you mentioned that India genuinely supports the growth of GCCs. Why do you think so?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I can say that without any caveat. What India brings to table, it's not easy for other countries to do that. Take an example. We are talking about 1.5 billion English-speaking, STEM-educated population, which is there. We actually graduates around 1.5 million engineers every year. It's not easy for any country to replicate that. And if you will see, it's not about talent only. If you just look at the maturity of the Indian business ecosystem, in last 5 to 10 years, we would have seen almost 100 unicorns, right? If you look at the digitization, whether it is Aadhaar-based system or data privacy rules, all that, if you just look at it, it is changing. So if you look at even a traditional company is thinking digital first nowadays, right? So the way I think things are changing, it is definitely a next level of growth. It is not only happening with respect to what talent is there, what business is doing. If you look at it from a government perspective also, the government's new mission, which is called Deep Tech Mission, as well as their semiconductor policy, if you just look at it, this is going in some direction, which is use of technology, use of AI. So all that is actually giving us signal that, GCCs are here to stay. Uh, Not only that, if you just look at GCC scenario, the tier 2 cities of India, whether it is Jaipur, Coimbatore, Pune for that matter, though Pune is not tier 2, but if you just look at Chandigarh, for example, these cities are coming. Jaipur is fantastic example, coming up very well. And then, that infrastructure is also good, which actually promotes or helps GCC to expand. So the way I just look at India from a GCC expansion perspective, I don't think so that India is just ticking the right boxes for GCC growth. To me, it is actually rewriting the criteria, what should be there for a GCC to grow. That's how I look at the scenario of GCCs in India.
So you indicate that there are friction points and there are challenges in setting up GCCs in India. And is it that harder for GCCs to come in India? What are those friction points then?
So if I just say on one side, we are saying India is a fantastic destination from a GCC perspective. But I think I'll be candid, because sometimes candor serves us better than just cheerleading. I think I see three pitfalls, or I would say some not so strong points. One to my mind is regulatory complexity. Second to my mind is talent depth. And third thing, the way I look at it is that, the IP and data security confidence. If you can just take it one by one from a regulatory perspective, when somebody or a foreign owned entity enters India and they want to set up, in India, they need to pass through a maze of laws and, commercial transaction, whether it is FEMA regulations, whether it is corporate laws, whether it is data privacy rules, income tax act, even incorporating in India. It's not easy. So you have to go through maze of laws. And I think the way we can solve this problem simultaneously is that if you have a single regulatory window, which is not just on paper, but which is very effective, I think that can actually change the regulatory complexity, and that can ease out a bit. Second thing which I discussed was a talent depth. So one is talent breadth, which means that you have a lot of people at a junior to mid level of management execution. But on the same side, I believe that we still need to have more depth at a senior level beyond 5 top cities, whether it is Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, Pune, Chennai, Hyderabad. If you just go beyond that cities, you don't have that market, or I would say talent depth. And that's what I want to mention, that we need to have something where more and more people are being trained to be leaders, and they understand the depth. They understand what is happening globally. They need to understand global scenario and then work locally. Third thing which we discussed was, I think it's a very important one, which is IP and data security confidence. The global MNCs, whether they are pharma companies, they are BFSI, or whether there are defense sector companies, they are very wary about what would happen to the IP, what they create as a knowledge in India. We also have to have a task of, for example, strengthening the timelines for any judicial dispute related to IP can help them, that can actually restore a confidence. Most of the time, at times when you speak to people at global level, you also find that the confidence in judiciary and judicial's system, not from a perspective of the things are not looked at, but from a perspective of timelines. People are here to do business. They want quick resolution, even if there is a commercial dispute. And then there are things like arbitration. If you can have something like that, which can help resolving the disputes quickly, that will actually help the scenario. So if I were to sum up, I'll say India's GCC pitch is 5-star. The entry process is still 3-star. So, you have all the ingredients, but you still have a work to go. And the gap between this 5-star, 3-star needs to reduce a bit. So that's how I look at the friction that's there with respect to setting up a GCC in India.
So, as I see, what you're indicating is we need to overcome these challenges in times to come, of course. What would be your advice to any multinational which is looking to set up in the country or setting up a GCC in the country?
Yeah, so I think my first point to anybody who has still not set up would be that the question is no longer that should you set up. I think I look at it other way around. You should think or introspect why you haven't so far. On a candid note, I'll not say the train has left the station, but I think I'm sure that you are delayed on the platform. The way or the advice I would share with anybody or any company which is thinking of setting up in GCC, or for that matter, investors, I think differently. Think long term. Don't think short term. If you are looking for cost advantage while setting up in India, there's no harm. You will get that cost save for sure because of the cost arbitrage. But I think that's not very forward looking. Forward looking is that how can I use a country where I have talent pool, where I have infrastructure available, in order to do something better, bigger than just cost save. For example, how can I have my R&D center coming in India, which actually enhances my product or service experience for my customer? So I think that's the way. How can I have advantage in my local market by having a team working from India, but at the same time looking at scenarios? So I think that's the one I will look at. Um, in order to do that, or by doing that, you will not be just saving the cost. Definitely that would be there, but you will also have access to a very, I would say, fast growing economy, even after all odds. And that gets you an access to a market, which is great. Who knows that tomorrow your product or service can be used within the country as well. And there is no dearth of requirement or demand of product or services in India. And it is also purely fine if you don't want to enter here as a business, but it can be your support. And I think, look at it this way. My second advice would be invest heavily in leadership. I think if you are just looking at, don't give your GCCs which you have set up a mandate to just execute. Give them the mandate from a decision making perspective. I think that's very, very important. I don't see that India talent, or for that matter India executive, would be any less if we can have people managing companies outside India. Why can't we manage companies of outside India from India itself, and treat it as a business unit? I think another approach which I have seen at least a lot of GCCs following, is that the approach was that it is a cost center. I would say it is not a cost center, it's a business unit. Treat it as the way you treat another business unit, with right charter, right objectives, and then add with respect to responsibility.
Sunil, you talked about Indian management participation. So, what does a good governance look like when seen in the context of an Indian executive?
Right. So this is where the rubber meets the road, and many governance structure actually fails for GCC. So the way it should happen is that the very important foundation for a GCC governance structure is trust localization. The leader at the local level, the India leader, should have a dual mandate. On one side, the GCCs in India should have their own P&L. They should have their own innovative charter, and they should have their own strategy for talent acquisition. At the same time, they should not only have that responsibility, but they should have a seat on the global table as well. If we are taking it as a cost center, as a unit which is less important to business, the leaders will not be able to participate. So On the other side, if they have a table, they have a seat on the table, and they are able to strategize along with the other leaders, the GCC will shape very, very differently. On the other side, if you look at a situation where for each strategy shift or talent acquisition, they have to be, if it's very hierarchical, bureaucratic, I think they will not be able to add value to it. I think another important aspect is that the participation in formulation, the GCC strategy. So the culture is coming from the very ethos of any organization outside India. But then to marry it with Indian scenarios, Indian culture, as well as the overall ethics, I think it's important that the strategy participation is there for leaders of India at the global level. So I think if this happens, things will definitely change.
Okay. So, in your view, what are some of the initiatives that can be taken in India to really help GCCs and their growth?
Yeah, I think it's very, very important question. If you ask me, this is where the work needs to be done. And if I may answer it in one line, the answer is that government as well as industry participation, GCC's participation is very important to not only grow a particular GCC or a particular participation of a particular institution or a country, but to kind of grow GCCs in India overall. Government actually has a lot of role to play. I have few suggestions to offer. The way I look at it is that government can actually create a GCC innovative index. Based on that innovative index, you can rate a GCC and then incentivize that. And actually, this will make a lot of sense because everybody is having the same rules to kind of qualify for. Similarly, if I look at it, launch a global talent magnet program. The way I look at it is that we always talk about resources of India, but India cannot become a good GCC hub till the time we have talent from all across the globe participating in it. We cannot just become the fantastic GCC hub without having a global talent. For example, government can have a program where expats are given tax incentives. The visas are quickened, right? And then, there is some way to facilitate their housing, solutions to expats. So I think I would say we don't need to only work with Indian talent, but we need to attract the global talent as well. Another thing I believe is GCC research corridor. I think industry or the GCCs which are already in India and those who aspire to be in India can actually participate or collaborate to create a research corridor with IITs, NITs, IIMs of the world which are all homegrown, and actually bring that very thought of nurturing talent. The focus should be research and application of AI as we speak, and it is not just AI strategy but GCC strategy as a whole. Who knows, India can be a country that can offer a fantastic global GCC framework for other countries also to follow or simulate. I believe the last one from my side is the GCCs which are coming to India, they need to be kind of contributing to sustainable development as well. I think we can also have something like a benchmark, ESG or a DEI benchmark to be followed by GCCs, because India as a country is committed to sustainable economic development, right? So I think if a GCC qualifies and they do well on ESG DI front, why can't we incentivize them as well? So I think these are some of the initiatives government can take. We can have a framework around it, and that would be a hit. And there are bodies which are already working in India.
Yes,
they can be entrusted, and participation from government as well as industry is a key, because otherwise it's not possible to nail this one.
Rightly said, Sunil. I think the BRSR mandates for 1,000 companies are already in place in the country.
That's right.
And you rightly touched upon the very fact that disclosures are important, which brings me to the follow-up question on, you talked about the talent here, and an important segment of the society is about Gen Zs and Gen Alpha, as we call them, the newer generation. So how do you see the fitment here and these two segments to fit into the GCC workforce?
The way I look at it is that they are not the future workforce for GCCs, but to me they are the architect for the what our GCCs will become in future. You look at it, Gen Z, Gen Alphas, they are the ones who are actually they grew up in a digital world, right? They are not only digitally aware, but they code, they design,
Yes.
they do things before even they get to their first job, right? It's really, really exciting.
Yeah.
So I think the way I look at it is that it's very natural for them to adopt AI. So when people say I will take jobs, I say no, I don't think so, because this generation is already catching up. They're doing a lot of work by use of AI, so they know how to use it, and they feel pride as well as they take it as a fun, which is a good part. Another thing which I believe is that they need to embrace change, which is very, very quick. AI is not static. It is not going to stay. So whatever you learned today may not be relevant after 6 months.
Yes.
It changes fast. So adapting to that change faster, the capability to adapt it and take it forward, I think that's the one which I believe will really change. But if I just look at it, I think the opportunity with Gen Z and Gen Alpha is huge, humongous. I don't think so we ever had so much opportunities that would come to them through GCCs. So I think if they are ready to embrace it, they are going to do very well. And the GCC in India, to me, has a very, very bright future with that.
Okay. So if I have to summarize our conversation here, India has a lot of potential. We are already ahead in the race with our talent pool, with our regulation, with our policies. All we need to do is to scale up and be ready for the next what is coming up. So Sunil, very insightful conversation. What would be your advice to our audience?
So yeah, my take for today's conversation on GCC is that India's GCC reflection point is now, not later. This is the last train to catch. You don't catch it, you will miss the bus. If India, somebody is selling or GCC story just on the cost advantage, I would say you are selling India short. It is more to do with culture, openness, capabilities. That's how I look at it. Last but not least is that the talent we have is very different. People are the only moat. Policies will change, tax structure would change, AI would keep coming, there would be other things. But if you have a very driven, purpose-oriented workforce, that is your competitive advantage. And nobody can, I would say, take it from you. My last point on this would be, the way I will end, is that India's GCC story is still in writing, and there are very good chapters yet to come.
Thank you, Sunil. With this, we come to the end of our conversation. To listen to more such insightful episodes, follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast.
This is The Thought Line, a Forvis Mazars podcast where ideas meet insight to shape what's next.